One of the things I really worried about, and I think I've spoken about this before, when I was awakening to my deeper self, as I like to call it, was this idea that the self, the ego, would disappear and I wouldn't know how to interact with people. And this makes me laugh now, for many reasons. Maybe I'll get into that. But I had this overwhelming fear that the worst thing that could happen was I wouldn't be able to interact with others, and I would just, that avenue for seeking, whether it's seeking connection or safety or even goodness, right? To be validated in my goodness would be gone. And so it led me into this inquiry of what does it look like to inhabit my deeper self, to let this self bleed into more of my life, more of my beingness, to let others see the face that I feel inside. And this is really complicated. I don't know if anyone will will get what I'm getting at here. Will you get me? But it really was a season of inner turmoil. And this was overlayered with all the things that I was healing and recovering from. And this is also the time period where I realized what narcissism really was, right? It's not just someone being selfish, like the actual personality disorder, and having my eyes kind of jammed open to the reality of narcissistic abuse, and that I had lived it my whole life. And so you have these overlaying, I feel like I went through the season of, ooh, that sounds good. I'm not going to, I'm going to bleep that out because I want that for myself. Maybe I'll use that as like a title or something. I'm a writer, so I'm not going to give you that. Now I want to, expound on that and see where it goes. But I went through this season, this foggy season of both awakening to the deeper self and also awakening to the complexity of egos and what it actually looks like when we get carried away by our ego and we're no longer accessible, right? If you've ever gone through narcissistic abuse, or you grew up in a narcissistic family, you may recognize this. It's that feeling of kind of trying to reach. I had this as a child so much. I would have nightmares every night growing up, and they finally slowed after college as I started my healing journey. But it took me a long time, right, to get past those night terrors. I had them for as long as I could remember as a child. And there's this one specific recurring dream that would happen where my father would be like swept up by a hurricane, and I'd just be trying to grab a hold of him and couldn't grab. And I know what it's like, to speak to people who I personally believe have this disorder. And it's like, hello, you're like trying to reach someone who is not there. There is no one there. And that is also what the ego feels like, right? When you actually get in touch with your deeper self. And I know I'm super behind. So I was supposed to release season 2 of the Deeper Self podcast in the spring. In fact, I end the podcast going something like, oh, it's spring is in the air. I hear the birds chirping. The weather's beautiful. Go outside. And I'm like, girl, now we're going to release that in the summer or the fall. Well, actually, I might release it in the fall now, just because it's going to be spring somewhere. I might actually do that. So, I'm speaking about themes on the deeper self that I know we haven't discussed in season 1. And I don't quite remember how deeply I go into it in season 2. Season 3 is already in the making. But, when you finally get in touch with your deeper self and you feel that solidity. It doesn't feel vague. It doesn't feel even like mystical. It feels real and here, and always has been here. Always has been here. And just that moment where you're like, oh my God, I've felt this my entire life. I've encountered this consciousness, a space within myself before, and I just didn't know what it was. And when that becomes more real than the ego, when you are dealing with the ego and sometimes working with the ego, as I've been in these past few years, and healing, my inner child and my inner child wounds and the wounds from going through these abusive dynamics, and it feels almost like the ego is the thing now that's like you're trying to grasp. Like you have an understanding of like, this is real and that I lived it, and my brain has these thoughts and my brain has been wired this way. It creates these feelings in my body, and when I become dysregulated, it creates these thought patterns. Like it's real in that sense. But once you are connecting to your deeper self and you pierce through it, it's also something that is like, what am I holding on to? It's nothing. As I hold it from the place of openness, from a place of being connected to my deeper self, it's just releases with ease. It's like, oh, I'm willing to give up that version of me, because it's, what am I holding on to? What am I grasping at? In a way, there's nothing there. And this has been really helpful for me in healing some of the hardest parts of recovering from, narcissistic family and narcissistic abuse. It's been really helpful because a lot of healing from narcissistic abuse is letting go. It's letting go of your old version of reality, which is so very painful and heart-wrenching and terrible. It breeds this degree of terror in you when you're first going through it, especially if, there's certain aspects of how I was raised and what I felt an affinity to, that led me to kind of have this very precious and innocent view of the world. I wouldn't say that it was, in many ways it was idealistic, even though I didn't feel like I had a very idealistic view of reality. I think I had a very depressing, I was depressed since I was a kid, but I still had that glimmer of hope. And wouldn't this be better if, right? Or maybe one day, maybe if I do X, Y, and Z, if I'm perfect, or if I help my family in this way, maybe I will save the family unit. Maybe I will save them. Maybe I would save my mom. Maybe I would save my dad. And I'm laughing because having gone through what I've gone through, I'm like, girl, wait till you're on the other side. I won't share, the inner workings of these things, because these are people who are complex, and it's so hard to even kind of whittle it down to something bite-sized that even like I could share with a friend. It's like impossible for them to really know and see things and see what I've seen. And so the details in many ways don't matter. Details don't matter, right? It's that grasping at nothing. But where was I? Yeah. I want to see if I can go as long as I can also in these videos, these upcoming videos I'm filming. I have a few topics written down. I might literally just stay in this one outfit because I just feel like talking, and I was going to record this past weekend, and then I was like, man, I don't know what I want to say. I feel like I have nothing to say. I have nothing to say. And this is something that I feel like occurs pretty regularly for me, where time feels strange in many ways, because I try to, I just notice things won't flow unless it's the right time. And I've wasted enough time forcing and then having to start over, right? Where it's like, I'm just like, you know what? There's probably a reason. And here I am today with like a zillion things that I want to talk about. And on Sunday, I felt like I had nothing to say. And I go through these moments. I have to remind myself every time I do, when I go through these moments of like, I don't have anything to say. I think I need to quit. I think I don't need to be making videos online. Maybe this is just not something I need to be doing. Maybe this isn't how I'm meant to reach people. Maybe I just need to do ads or whatever and just forget about this part of the work. And then there are days like this where I'm like, I have so much to say. I have so much to impart. And so I need to remember that these days do come. And so I've now forgotten where I was going. What were we talking about? Well, I was saying that I want to go as long as I can without too much editing because it's a pain in my butt. But also I'm just wanting to be more real, more casual, just be myself more. We were talking about being yourself. And yes, we were talking about being yourself and who is the real you, especially after you've gone through seasons where maybe you're grasping and it's like, who am I really, right? So when you do make contact with the deeper self, this is where we were, right? I was mentioning the deeper self, then I got off on a tangent because I was like, dang, I didn't release this season yet. Might come in the fall. Okay, so back to the reaching and why connecting with your deeper self is helpful in healing. So I've used this in specific moments. So for me, healing is like, I don't know if it's a lifelong journey, because I will say, I mean, yes, it is, right? It's a lifelong journey, whatever. But I will say there are some things where I do feel like I've closed the chapter on that. And that might just be me from like right this moment. It might be like in another season, I'll have to reopen that because I still have more to heal on that. But I could definitely say there are some things where I'm like, I've closed the chapter on that. Closed it. Done. Like there are parts of me that feel pretty healed, but I do understand like it's a lifelong journey. Yeah, we get it. But so for me, it's really it's an art, it's a listening, it's like pulling out different tools in your toolkit and like sensing when and it's appropriate to use it. And obviously this is like my work. I'm a coach. This is what I love to do. I like to inspect my inner workings and I like to give myself different tools and options to work through what I'm working through. And so for me, this is like joyful work and I love doing it. You know, it's nice to have a work that you benefit from yourself and that you get to share with others. And so for me, healing is very much this music. There's a music to it. Sometimes I am pounding the drums in anger and I'm like, oh, like there's anger missing in this season. And I don't catch it until I am trying to break through and I'm like, what is it? Maybe I'm playing a harp or something really elegant and I'm trying to raise my vibration. And I'm like, something is just not working, right? Something's not working, something's missing. And then it's recognizing, oh, we've left out the percussions, like we've left out this note. There's some, and I'm not like a trained musician, so I'm sure if you are, you can, you know, speak more elegantly about this metaphor. But you get the sense of like, you know, when you're listening to a song and if it's too stripped back, you kind of miss some of the instruments that were there. And then if it's too much, it's like it's too much, right? It just is too much and you get overwhelmed and you just want to turn it off, right? And so for me, healing is listening for when I need to use a harp and when I need to use, you know, drums, or when I need to be on the piano, when I need to be doing a jam session. I have my guitar here. And so it's a listening. And sometimes you need to work with the ego. Sometimes you have to work with the thoughts that are coming up and like, how can I, like, there's opportunities that arise for you to rework those thoughts. But you have to know when to do it. You have to know when to do it. And those my neighbors. And this is something where I didn't fully understand when I was starting out. And this is actually what my work is mainly focused on now for the past like 6 months, a year to a year. I've been really focusing more on nervous system regulation and helping you to recognize when it's appropriate to do what. When is it appropriate to sink into the body? When is it to come into even the spiritual space, right? And work with your deeper self. And so sometimes, you're just in the thing that really isn't there, and you're just feeling your way through it, and you're letting the emotions come up. And then sometimes you know when to drop into your deeper self and let that sense of, it's not quite, I feel like detachment doesn't really cover it. And I also think because detachment is so, sometimes it's misused, and it creates a sense that spirituality is about detaching, right? The spiritual self, the soul self, the deeper self is just detached and it's removed and it doesn't care. And that's not quite it. There's like a word, there isn't a word really for the feeling. It feels both highly engaged, but also deeply relaxed. So if you can feel those two at the same time, where you're so eager for life, but you're also floating. You're so eager for life, but you're also like, you've got your hands. This is a dream. Talk about my dream space completely transforming from nightmares every night as a kid. Recently, I had this dream where I was on a roller coaster. And if you watched or listened to the podcast, The Rest is Science, I've been meaning to write into them because I have a question. I woke up thinking I had literally been on a roller coaster. So I've always been a little bit afraid of roller coasters. I don't mind small roller coasters like those for kids. That's okay. But the really big ones that do the loop-de-loop and everything, like, it always freaked me out. I've never been able to relax on one of those, and it's understandable. I think, when I think about my childhood, like what I wanted and needed was calm spaces, peaceful spaces, and I had enough adrenaline at home. I didn't need that. And so it makes sense why I was never able to fully, have fun and release in one of those. But in this dream, I'm on this roller coaster and it's going up. Everyone around me is like scared, anxious, scared when you're going on a roller coaster. And I just had this moment of, wait, I'm not afraid. And I just throw my hands up and this thing goes really high. It dips, it does a zoom, right? When it makes those crazy turns. And it was amazing. One of the best feelings I've ever had. I woke up feeling like I truly was just on a roller coaster. And of course, I know balance, like, that's all inner ear stuff, right? And feeling like that moment where you're weightless. I want to know how on earth my brain is able to create those feelings and sensations in a dream. So I want to write that. I'm going to write into The Rest of Science. I love that podcast. But yeah, it's that double feeling of I am like floating. I'm weightless, right? So in a way, detached, but I'm also fully engaged, just as in a roller coaster. Like it's that feeling. I'm that into it. I'm that strapped in, and yet that completely weightless and in a sense detached, right? So that is the feeling that we're reaching for when we're working with the deeper self. Not all the time, but I am allowing it more and more these days. It doesn't have to be something that you feel at all hours, but I am allowing myself to invite more of it and open up my capacity for it, because it really is a felt sense, a bodily capacity. And this is where we work with the ego and the body again, right? We weave that back into, can I allow myself to feel more of this? Can I allow more in? Can I allow more in? Can I allow more in? And that actually brings in more of everything, more of love, more connection, more synchronicities, and you start to experience the world. I used to be so concerned when it came to manifesting. I was mainly focused on manifesting financial abundance, and now for me, manifesting is, oh, it's this feeling of being in a roller coaster, strapped in but arms up, enjoying the ride, completely eager but also detached, right? And not detached but also like in a full release. Like I so trust this vehicle that I can let myself go on this ride, this loop-de-loop. I have no idea what I'm going to title this. I'm sitting here like I had titles written down, but I just started talking and I forgot what the initial conversation was. But I felt like that message was poignant. I felt like that was important to share. And I'm not going to edit out this pause. There's a couple pauses I'll edit out. Yes. Okay. All right. So I'm going to leave you with that question, right? How can you work with both the nothingness and the solidity at the same time? Work with the deeper self, let that feel more real, and also even soften around the ego if that feels super right? If you're trying to grasp onto old stories, old ways of being, you're clinging on to them like, this is me, this is who I really am. Your deeper self is like, sure, girl. Whatever you want to say. We love you so much. You say the darnest things. Yeah, so there's that kind of letting both of these things, both the ego and the deeper self, kind of go through these different phases, from solidifying to maybe becoming more liquid, more airy. And instead of, this is what we started with. Memory, thank you. Brain, kiss my brain. I started with talking about how when I first started my healing, or not my healing journey, but awakening more to my deeper self, when I really made this, I feel like a strong soul contract of, I'm gonna go all the way. I want to experience this fully in my life, in this lifetime. And that led to so much. But that kind of questioning of, well, how do I integrate this? How do I interact with other people? Am I going to become like this? I don't really want to be a monk. No offense to monks, and no offense to, kind of like the Eckhart Tolles of the world. I was just feeling so much fear that I would have to kind of become this kind of placid person. And now I don't even really feel fear around that anymore. What I was really fearing was the abuse that I didn't recognize I was experiencing, and knowing, there was a deep knowing in me that, oh, this person's really, like, I'm really going to be taken advantage of. Like, I am going to put myself in a really dangerous place if I allow myself to awaken to that. And of course now I'm like, maybe not. Maybe I would have had, well, I needed to go through the learning. I'll just leave it at that. I think everything worked out as it should have. And now I can allow myself to have moments where, I go for walks and I just let myself get into that bliss state, because I know I'm safe, right? And I know how to keep myself safe, and I know how to detect unsafe people. I did not know how to do that when I was first, awakening this energy and letting this petal open within me. But, I was really concerned with how are my friends going to, take this? How are people going to react? And I will say, interestingly, those who I feared the reaction of the most have disappeared out of my life. So I think in many ways my soul was like, don't worry, we'll prepare the way. Whoever needs to stay will stay. Whoever's meant to join you on this next journey, they'll join you. And those who will not will prepare you to either let go or they will let go. And you'll just both let go together. And not in, what's interesting for me is it's not in the sense of like complete detachment. It's in this, there's, always a part of me that cares for those people and wishes them well. Even if they've wronged me, I sincerely wish them well. I want them to have success, happiness, riches, everything, love, everything that they want. I just don't want to be a casualty. I will not allow it. Right. So there's always a part of me that has this, I've got an eye, like not an actual eye. I'm not looking in your direction. But when you walk into a room, or maybe this is, for those of us who are highly tuned in, but where you can sense things. Maybe you can sense when someone's watching you, or if you're walking. I was doing this the other day. I was walking and I was looking at my phone because I like to listen to some of the audiobooks that I'm researching, using, to research and stuff. It's mixes things up instead of just reading it. But it's a hazard because I almost walked into a fallen tree branch. But before I just I'm like inches away and I just looked up, like senses clicked on, like there's something in front of me. And so you have, in a way, I always feel like there's always a part of me that's like, I got my feelers out. I'm sending you good vibes. We may not be connected and we may never ever have a relationship again in this lifetime, but I got my feelers out and I wish you well. And so this is why I don't think that the deeper self really ever completely is detached, because it's kind of in everything. And that sense of presence is in everything. And I think we want, from an egoic place, we wish it would detach, because maybe it would give us a sense of safety. I've definitely gone through this where I'm like, man, I hope to not encounter some of these people again. When people are like, especially those who've had positive experiences, or maybe, I've heard stories, of people who remember their past lives and they're like, oh, this, my mom was my sister in another lifetime, or this person was this person. And I'm like, I hope I've never met y'all and I'll never meet y'all again. Because I've just encountered just some really interesting folks. But that's my ego, right? That's my fear and like wanting to protect myself. Like, I hope this isn't for all eternity. But once I dip into my deeper self, it's like, oh, there's nothing to fear. You can't actually harm me. You have no power over me. And I am setting the tone of my life. I will even say, even with the tricky dynamics that I've navigated, I've made it out, not because I'm this like relational genius. No, I think I have. I'm definitely not that. But I just have a keen intuition that just places me in the right place at the right time to hear what I need to hear, and then lifts me out. And, once you are not in that egoic place of fear, in that bodily place of fear, you realize there isn't really anyone who is dictating this journey. And in the space of eternity, a few decades of suffering, it really is a blink. It really is a blink. At least that's how I feel when I connect to my deeper self, and I feel just the timelessness of that energy. Everything feels so small all of a sudden, but also so big. Like, I'm really excited to be here. You know, I've got my dreams, like big dreams and things that I want to do. And then as I tune into my deeper self, I'm like, you know what I really want to do though? So I'm going to go for a walk and I want to look at the plants. I want to look at the plants, and it makes my life feel so full, where I feel like outsiders are like, oh, you're not where you are meant to be, or like, you're moving so slow, and why is it taking you so long? Like mimicking people who I've encountered. Why does it take you so long to go through that, or blah, 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 blah. And it's like, it feels like such a contrast to how I feel inside, because this connection to me, to my deeper self, makes my life feel so big, and it makes every moment feel so big, and yet also kind of small, like it's, I don't know, it's a blimp. And so this is an invitation to not hold on to your definitions of what it will look like to integrate your deeper self and to integrate with your soul self and to awaken, right? If you're also someone who's like, I don't want to be, right? I don't want to be a monk or like an Eckhart Tolle or whatever. Like, I don't know if I want to do that. Well, what else? There are other options. There are other ways to blend and to play. To me, identity is like play. It's play, you know, especially I've been working this past few years to get my voice back. Like, I literally, through the abuse that I went through, and you might watch some of my videos and you'll hear it. I thought I had literally destroyed my vocal cords or something, because in my 20s, this has always been something where I love to sing since I was a kid. I've always loved singing, but I always did like a very soft, like singing voice, like like that, right? Never really projecting, right? Because I had so much fear and tension, of course, from what I went through. And in my 20s, that started to shift. I just started saying, I don't care what I sound like, and I don't care if I sound bad. I just want to sing and experiment and see what my voice can do. And so I thought I had damaged my voice because I started to get this squeak. And when I talk, even just talking to do the videos, when I started doing YouTube videos, because I also didn't want to do YouTube videos for the longest time because I didn't want to be seen and I didn't want to be perceived, as I was just podcasting and doing audio only. And I've actually, you know, I've deleted, like, not deleted, there are files that I personally have, but I've removed almost every episode of my old podcast because I just was so self-conscious. I didn't want to be seen, and I didn't know, that's another video. We'll have to talk about that another time. But I didn't know the impact that all of that had on my voice. I started to get this squeak. I don't even think I can do it right now. It literally sounds like a creaky mic or a door. It sounds like something that shouldn't come out of a human body, but it was in my voice for the longest time until a month ago when I started to process my rage. And that's what we're going to talk about in the next video. So subscribe, and I'll have it here because maybe I'll upload both of these at the same time. Go ahead and click on it, because I want to talk about rage and why it's important. If you're struggling even with integrating your awakened self and your ego, let's look at your rage. If you don't know who the real you is, if you've gone through abuse like I have, let's look at your rage. Let's hear what she has to say. But before we get into that, let me just wrap up this video. So I was really struggling, you know, to find my voice again. And I shouldn't even say again, to find my voice for the first time. You know, I feel like I'm talking now, and I speak both in these videos, but just with friends, with people, I'm able to be my real self in a way that I've never, ever been able to do or be my whole life. I don't ever remember being able to even be authentic. So this is nice. And so for me, this kind of weaving in, it feels like I feel like a newborn adult baby, you know, where you're like, it's like I'm here for the first time. I'm here for the first time. And it feels nice actually to be here as a full, whole self, right? To have access to my deeper self. All right, so let's get into anger and why, if you're someone who you don't know who you really are, my guess is that your suppressed anger is the real you that you're hiding from. Let's get into it. All right, I'm Unique Belle. Hit subscribe. Check out that next video.